Hello and welcome to Maths with Jacob. This lesson will focus on average of fractions. Calculating the average of two or more fractions is similar to finding the average of two or more whole numbers. If we remember, the average was the sum of the scores over the total number of scores. Now we did that in an earlier lesson. Let us do an example with whole numbers before looking at some examples involving fractions. Example: find the average of 3, 6, 8 and 11. So the average is the sum of the scores, which is the addition of the four scores, over the total number of scores, which is 4 because there are 4 scores. You add those numbers up to get 28. There are 4 scores. 4 into 28 goes 7. So the average of the four numbers is 7. Now, let us have a look at some examples with fractions. Let's find the average of a half, a quarter, and 1/8. Now the principles are the same. The average is the addition of the three fractions divided by 3. Now let's focus on the addition of the three fractions because we have to solve that top part there. So here we are. If you remember the earlier lesson we had, we must arrive at three fractions which have the same denominator before we can add them up. So here we have three different denominators. To find our denominator, we have to find the lowest common multiple of 2, 4 and 8. That is, what's the lowest number that 2, 4 and 8 will divide into evenly? And that's 8. In other words, our denominator that we're after will be 8. Now, here we have a half. How do we get 8? Multiply that by 4. Remember, you have to multiply the numerator by 4 to keep the value of the fraction the same. So you multiply by 4 over 4. How do we get 8 here? 4 times 2. So we multiply top and bottom by 2. How do we get 8 here? We already have 8, so we don't have to do anything. So let's go to the next slide to work out this calculation. So when we work out that part and that part stays the same. This is what we get on the next slide. We get 4 on 8 plus 2 on 8 plus 1 on 8. Add the numerators together because the denominators are the same. That gives us 7 over 8. Now to find the average, we have 7 over 8 divided by 3, because there are 3 scores. Now if we remember from a previous video, when we are dividing a fraction by a whole number, write that whole number over 1, because that makes it look like a fraction. So you remember the rule, change the division to multiplication and turn the fraction upside down. 7 ones are 7, 8 threes are 24. So the average of the three fractions we had earlier is 7 over 24. Let's find the average of those three fractions. So we have to add them up and divide by 3. A half plus a third plus a quarter, we need to make the denominators the same. The lowest common multiple of 2, 3 and 4 is 12. That's the lowest number that those three will divide into. So 12 will be our denominator. How do we get 12 here? Multiply by 6 over 6. How do we get 12 there? Multiply by 4 over 4. How do we get 12 there? Multiply by 3 over 3. That simplifies to that. That simplifies to that. And that simplifies to that. When we add those three together, 6 plus 4 is 10 plus 3 is 13. 13 over 12. To find the average, 13 over 12 divided by 3 will be 13 over 12 multiplied by 1 over 3. Because remember, that's actually 3 over 1. So change the division sign to a multiplication sign and turn this fraction upside down. 13 ones are 13, 12 threes are 36. So the average of these three fractions is 13 over 36. So this video has shown us how to find the average of a number of fractions, and the process is very similar to finding the average for whole numbers.